Hello, corrections. I'm here early. I'm going to sit around and chill for a couple of minutes. We start in exactly 2 minutes, and I'm very happy to be here. Let's see here. Why is that muted? A couple of minutes. Oh, that's fine. In exactly 2 minutes, and I'm very happy to be here. In any case, today's class is not going to be a full-time. It's just really an opportunity for us to meet each other. It's probably going to go 20-30 minutes. Originally, I was going to have us meet up in the third week, and I chose not to do it that way, simply because I thought waiting until, well, it had been the fourth week actually. I thought that'd just be a little bit too late. So I decided that I'd go ahead and do something quick and abbreviated today, but give you something to think about as we move forward into the semester. First of all, hey Brian, I would really just like to congratulate you on achieving the first milestone. I wish you could have sat on my end of it and actually had a chance to see what it was like to have hundreds, if not 1,000 or 2,000 text messages come through asking just simply how to submit an assignment. We're not going to talk about that today, but nonetheless, I knew it would be a little choppy, which is fine because this remote is a lot different than even virtual or a live class, obviously. So we're not going to worry about the strains up front. The strains, we expected those to happen. And I'm a very adaptive professor, as some of you have noticed through the text messages and the phone calls and emails and things of that nature that, I'm on your side. We're going to figure out how to get you through it. And the most important thing is you're going to learn. We're going to be talking about prisons. Now, I did ask and invite in other classes, so it's an open forum today, which is fine with me. I'm not going to be discussing assignments right now. I just want to get to the weekend and start to analyze all the responses that I received from people in the class pertaining to the first assignment, the Who Am I assignment. Hello, Melanie. How are you? I hope you're having a great day as well. And so based upon that, I just want to keep things really simple. I'm going to give people a couple more minutes to come in here. Roxana, hello. Bijou, Alejandro, welcome. Sophia, good to see you this afternoon. I'm still getting my bearings together. Charlie, Christian, excellent, excellent. I think we have 25 people in the class. We're already up to 13 who are on here. Isaac, I'm doing great, thank you. Kristen, hello. Yeah, I brought out the Ohio State hat. Thank you. I'd rather do that than have you reflect on my bald head the whole time. It's just not a great look. I think about doing it naturally, but too much reflection and it gets right into your view. Chris, hey, go Bucks! Yes, absolutely. Hopefully, if they're going to have a season, let's go ahead and have the season. That's the way I look at it. Oh, sorry, Alexandros Aracas. Okay. Isaac, for sure. Well, hey, thank you for that Buckeye support. I hope I give you as much support as students as you're giving me for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I know we're from Miami, and I'm actually in Arizona right now, but I know that the Hurricane fans give me a grief all the time, and which is perfectly fine. There's going to be some changes that are going to take place, and I'll announce those later. The school is still trying to figure out the rules and the regulations that pertain to remote learning. So I've been kind of the type of person who I just seek to get the job done. I'll worry about the rules and the regulations later. I've never been one to follow rules. It's kind of in my personality type. Hello, Andy. I want you to succeed. And as I said before, I just want to congratulate you for getting that first assignment in. I know it was confusing for a lot of you, which is fine. You got to remember, like I was walking this morning, and every morning I take a walk that takes me about Professor Finisar. Hello, Professor. It's nice to have another one in the class. Every morning I take a walk so I can stretch my legs out. It's usually about a 20-30 minute walk so I can keep my weight down. And this morning I had a revelation that says, I'm wrong a lot, but I think. Hello, Michelle. Oh, hey, Michelle. Nice seeing you again. So one of the things that I continue to, Gismeli, nice to see you. One of the things that continues to strike me as unique is that I may be wrong, but I think. So when you're doing your assignments, Radio, good afternoon, think in terms of thinking and not in terms of getting it right or wrong. At this point in the semester, I'll give you a little secret. I grade you based upon where you are. not where you're supposed to be in week 16. Aria, good to see you. Week 16, you're going to be a transformed person, right? Your writing style is going to be different. The way you think about topics pertaining to prisons and corrections and institutionalization, parole, probation, all those kind of things, it'll all change by the end of the semester. You can't be there right now. I don't expect you to be there right now. I expect you to be giving it your best, and then as you give it your best, what I want you to do is learn how to think for yourself. That's the key to all of it. Can you think for yourself? Don't think for me. Forget about it. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. If you get a B plus, you get a B plus. But we're going to get you to the point where you're getting A's. And my guess is wipe the grade out of your mind. All right, forget about the grade right now. Hey, Lauren, and think in terms of how can I best express what I know and what I want to know. Right. So we take a look at this idea that I may be wrong, but I think. Right. A lot of times you'll be right and you'll think. Well, as I look around the nation, and we'll get into this more as the semester progresses. I'm a sociologist, and because I'm a sociologist, I see the world through a sociological lens. If you watch the Who Am I video, right, it starts Who Am I am, da, da, but towards the end of the video, there are the institutions. Alexander, hello. There are the institutions that are at the top that shape the way in which opportunity structures work, networks, our small groups, and how they influence us, right? So if you go back and watch that video, you'll see that we are not individuals. Hey, Dual, Andre, we're not individuals as much as we are contextual beings, right? So when we take a look at the protests, yeah, I believe in protesting. You know, I grew up, I was born in the 60s, came up in the 70s where protest was still a part of the common vernacular. However, I see a great divide right now. And as I watch, I'm not saying who's right and I'm not saying who's wrong because frankly, I don't know. I'm not there. I didn't witness any of the incidents. I don't have the evidence in front of me, but here's what I do know. Every single one of these events took place within a social context, right? There are institutional forces that shape us. Hey, Daisy, good to see you. There are institutional forces that shape our opportunities, and our opportunities shape the way in which we express ourselves through our networks. And our networks create for us small groups, and the small groups create for us individuals. The way I look at it is that we really are bound by, and here's the first term I really want you to think about. The first term that I want you to consider when we consider corrections, hey Megan, is we consider the idea of common sense. Let me go ahead and write that down, even though it's an easy word to know, and if I misspell, you have to forgive me. Common sense is a word that really shapes our worldview, correct? You have common sense that works for you. I have common sense that works for me. And sometimes, just sometimes, our common sense won't meet. Sometimes, just sometimes, your common sense, you may feel is better than mine, and I may feel the same way in reverse. But what it really comes down to is what is common sense when we take into account what is human nature, right? If we were in a live class right now, I'd do a couple demonstrations for you to demonstrate how common sense affects the way in which we see the world, how human nature affects the way in which we interpret things. Let's keep it simple. When I asked you to list for me the first 3 crimes that come to your mind, right? What I'm really asking you is to give me your common sense perception about crime. That's what I'm asking. And what would happen is, and I'll be able to see this when I take a look at your answers that you submitted the other day. And if you haven't submitted them yet, you know, submit them by tomorrow. I'm not gonna whack you over something like that. You know, some of you don't have Wi-Fi, some of you are moving, things going on in your family, right? Okay, so if we take a look at common sense, we take a look at human nature. Common sense shapes for us an understanding of the world in which we live, right? Common sense allows us to adapt to that which is familiar. However, common sense also creates for us a boundary between those who share our common sense and those who do not. So when we're watching and we're in this incredible election year, right? The year 2020, and we have Trump up against Biden, and they have, you know, Biden and his team has one philosophy, and Trump and his team have a whole nother philosophy. And really, what their philosophy is a common sense perspective. Because common sense for us is developed through what? It's developed through 3 mechanisms, right? And you can write notes on this because we're going to keep coming back to it. It's based upon 3 mechanisms. The first one, I'll write it down, is word of mouth, right? And this is really one of the most important ones because we tend to believe the things that we hear from the people around us. And especially when we're young, when we're in the family, We get socialized into a system to believe that our parents are going to direct us in the right direction. Uh-oh, come on, Bradley, with that Schwaner. I like that. I like that. Right? So they shape the way we think. They shape the way we speak. They shape the language system that we speak. They shape a lot of times our political orientation. And really what that is being socialized by word of mouth. Right? So we learn through word of mouth. The second area in which we live or learn from, and this is the one that's really the damaging one in my opinion, and it's opinion, you can prove me otherwise, is the use of the media. Right? So if our dominant perception or our dominant behavior is to utilize the media for our news, for our information, for our knowledge, and that media is edited, and there's editors that make a decision as to what you see from what you don't see, how it's reported from how it's not reported. If those editors are making decisions that give you news, then what's really happening is you're getting mediated information. You're not getting real information. You're getting a series of decisions that were made as to what's going to promote ratings. So if you have word of mouth shaping your common sense, and then you have the news and the media shaping common sense, then what's going to happen? What's going to happen is you quit questioning your own thinking system, and you follow along with what other people are telling you. So the more you follow what other people are telling you, then what happens is you become further and further away from who you are and what you should be. All right? And by the way, I'm going to see this in the answers, and when we come back in 2 weeks, I'm going to show you that you have forgotten who you should be. Right? You can't tell now because you're sitting here, you're in college, we're watching this thing live stream, and we feel like we are who we are. But the fact of the matter is, who you are has probably been lost in a system of education that you didn't create. And it's reinforced by a media that you didn't create, right? And here's the third source. The third source of information that we use to develop common sense is politics, right? The ideology of politics. And an ideology, right, is a fixed system. It's a fixed set of beliefs that define the way in which we see the world. And a radio can tell you, if I wrote that on the board, you'd never be able to read it. My handwriting's horrible. Looks like chicken scratch, but at least you can read that. But if you take into account word of mouth, being reinforced by the media, being reinforced by politics, what's going to happen is your common sense, the way you see the world, belongs to somebody else. And what we're seeing with the protests is a lack of thinking. What we're seeing are people aligning with their common sense. And those who represent their common sense are the very persons, hello Natalie, good to see you. Those are the persons that we're going to align with. And in that alignment, what happens is who we are, because you did the assignment, right? Who am I? Who we are, what we are, is defined by our emotions tied to our belief systems. So if this is our belief right here, right? And our identity is tied to this belief, we're going to align ourselves with those persons that reinforce our belief, which means typically we're going to follow our common sense to associate with ourselves with people who make us feel comfortable about our perspective. It's amazing, right? Because it could be that the very common sense that we're using is absolutely incorrect. It could become something that's completely different. As a matter of fact, there's nothing that says one person or group's common sense is better than another one, right? That's just selective attention. And here's what happens with selective attention. I'll put that down too. Selective attention. What we do is, in order to feel that our beliefs are centered, that our beliefs are ours, that we believe in them, that we own them, what we do then is we go out and look for information that reinforces what we already believe. We look for stuff that supports the belief system that we already have, because if you ever notice that when people get in arguments, they get in arguments over two things. Politics, and there's going to be a lot of it this fall, baby. You watch. There's going to be all kinds of arguing. Trump, Biden, are you serious? And then the next one is going to be religion, right? And the reason why people argue over this is because there's an emotional attachment that my beliefs belong to me. And if you question them, if you break them down, then what happens is you see a lot of competition over the creation of a belief that is correct. And that's what's happening with the protests, right? The protest is really a battle of common sense. But whose common sense is going to prevail? Under what circumstances are going to prevail? And what you see with the violence is that people, when their common sense gets questioned, their emotion gets triggered. And when their emotion gets triggered, that's when you all of a sudden have battling. That's when you have conflict. And we have not been trained as a society in how to manage conflict resolution. Typically, conflict resolution, especially, and we'll get into all this stuff later, in a male-dominated society, at the institutional level, let me get that, go back to that diagram, right, that video, at the institutional level. When that gets challenged, a lot of persons turn to violence because it's the emotional expression. And this is what you're watching. You are watching a competition between whose common sense is correct and whose common sense is incorrect. And then you have the political figures, you have the media, and you have the people in your life who are either confirming or disconfirming your belief, rather than us going out and questioning it ourselves. So what we're going to do this semester is we're going to take a look at where our beliefs come from. What do we believe? And in this class is corrections, and we're going to analyze corrections and our perceptions on violence, not violence, but on punishment, and how people should be punished, how they should be processed if they are a criminal wrongdoer. Right? We're going to take a look at those common sense assumptions, see if they match policy, or is it politics that lead to the type of punishments that we dole out or what have you. Now, the one issue with common sense, all right? One issue with common sense is it allows you to adapt to a familiar environment, a familiar situation. But the problem with common sense is it's short-sighted, right? Because if this is my experience that I've had, right? And these are the medias that I have used. By the way, your textbook is a media, right? It's mediated information. Someone read it, someone researched it, somebody interviewed people, they came up with an interpretation of corrections, and they wrote a book. It's a mediated piece of information that should also be critically assessed just like everything else, right? So we come up with this situation, and we go into a new environment, and the new environment always seems foreign to us. It seems different. Why? Because our common sense doesn't fit in, right? If I am, well, I'm going to go back to Ohio State for a second. I'm Ryan Day, and I want to recruit somebody to replace Justin Field, who, he's going to win the Heisman. Don't worry about it. Somehow we'll figure it out. So we're going to recruit a person to replace a Heisman Trophy. Now, a winner. So let's say, for example, we have someone who is great at playground football, fast, got a great arm, but has never once played organized football, right? Versus someone who is fast, who has a great arm, who's played organized football and won a state championship. Who are we most likely to recruit? We're most likely to recruit the player who comes from a system, an offensive system, that represents the type of offense that we run at Ohio State. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to find somebody who has a great arm. There's millions of people with a great arm. Find someone with great speed. There's a million people with great speed. But we want someone to come in who has the same common sense to play that quarterback role as Justin Field. So what we're going to do is we're going to recruit somebody whose common sense fits in, right? Because the common sense from the playground may be short-sighted to play within a system. You understand? But if we do it reverse order, persons who are formally trained may not be able to fit in as well in a playground system, right? Because their method of structure may not fit into a freestyle type of system. In other words, here's what I'm saying. Because you got common sense doesn't make it better than my common sense, right? That is called ethnocentric thinking. Ethnocentrism is where we judge another perspective as inferior to ours because we believe somehow ours is correct. And ethnocentrism is the basis of all kinds of forms of hatred that we see. There's gender-based hatred, right? There's social class-based hatred. There's race-based hatred. There's xenophobia, right? A fear of people coming in from other societies, from other countries. Why? Because it's been built into us. It's been built into our common sense system. And when we believe it as if it's true, we create boundaries between one another. And the one thing that I've learned in my lifetime is that the reason I've been able to fluidly flow between all kinds of groups is simply because I don't believe in common sense. Right? I believe that we're all more similar than we are different. And therefore, I can learn from you and adapt to your situation rather than judge you. Right? So one of the things I'm really looking at is, and this is called, I'm going to write it down for you. All right? One of the first terms that I'm going to give you is by C. Wright Mills, called the sociological imagination. And what he argues is that we all have the ability to see the perspective of other, right? The reason is because when I say, who am I? Almost all of us are going to say son or daughter. So we sit here and think that we're completely different. But when I say, who am I? I am a blank, I'm a son. Man, I'm just like the rest of you. I'm an offspring, right? I am a father. I'm like a lot of you who are parents, right? I am a student. I think of myself as a student to you, and I'm going to learn a lot from you this semester. And you are a student, so we're very similar, right? I am a man, so I have similarities with men. You keep going. I'm an employee. So based upon being a male employee, we are similar. In other words, who we are, our identity, what we are, is shaped by forces that are external to us. Our problem is that because we have common sense, we immediately assess that we know something about a crime scene. We immediately assess that we know something about the crime that took place, and we immediately believe that we can justify guilty or not guilty based upon our common sense. And the fact of the matter is, that's the reason why we created a Constitution, because the Constitution was created to protect us from tyrants, so that we would have rights, so we wouldn't be wrongfully prosecuted or persecuted by vigilants who believed that somehow my perspective was wrong and yours was correct, right? So in other words, the reason why we have due process in our criminal justice system is to protect ourselves from one another, right? There are two major theorists, philosophers, right, out there that define human nature, and we're going to come back to human nature later. One is Thomas Hobbes, let me write him down, right? And the other one is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And fundamentally, Thomas Hobbes believes that every human being has an inherent evil in them. And the reason why we have laws is because people are inherently competitive, they're inherently nasty, and we have laws to protect ourselves from the naked self-interest of everybody, right? So if you take a look at a Hobbesian perspective on common sense, then a law and order campaign that Trump is running is perfectly appropriate. Everyone's mad at Trump. No, Trump is following a Hobbesian perspective. It's a philosophical perspective. It's the same perspective that was used in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s in crime control, right? There's an inherent notion that people who engage in wrong are evil. Inherently evil. They're born evil, right? So if they're born evil, then what we need to do is punish them. So if they engage in a crime, you don't ask them a whole lot of questions. If they're convicted, you give them the worst sentence, you give them the longest sentence, you take away all their freedoms, you put them in prison, and you throw away the key, right? Do the crime, do the time, baby. Versus Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who says that people are inherently good. They're born good, but they get misled through life, right? So the law should really be designed to bring people back into their core self, which is a good person. And now these persons are going to say, well, if someone was misled, then what we really need to do is rehabilitate that person, right? So all of a sudden, it's either law and order or it's going to be rehabilitation. And the direction that we go in is based upon the overlap between common sense, media, and politics. Boom! That's truth, right? So there you go. I'm not going to get into much more. I said I got a little emergency I have to tend to. But this is just a little kickoff. Think in terms of common sense. That's the core of how I look at these classes. Take a look at common sense. Take a look at human nature, which we're going to do some exercises in a couple weeks on human nature. And I will be posting a video. Yes, I am, Oscar. I'm going to be posting a video that discusses your next assignment. Yeah, yeah, radio, it is a good show. But of course, I don't watch TV anymore. I don't watch the news. I turned it off a long time ago. You know why? Because I can think for myself, baby. I don't need you to tell me how to think. I can weigh it all out. Right? I'm neither conservative nor am I liberal. I'm none of that. I am Sean, and I've learned to think. I identify trends, and I come to conclusions on my own. Killing it, Mr. Easy, Schwaneasy. All right, you all. I'm going to hop off of here. But I will continue to watch the announcement board, because on the announcement board I'm going to guide you through. Those of you who are nervous, those of you who are worried about this remote learning, I don't have Wi-Fi, I don't know when to turn things in, I'm going to guide you. Do feel free to text me on the 755 number. One more question, is there an assignment due date schedule? Yes, Oscar, if you go into your syllabus, there is a section on the second page or third page that says course calendar. That course calendar will tell you exactly what days the live stream is. It says live stream. And if you read down, across gives you the date, and reading down tells you what date. So it'll give you what chapters need to be read. Then it'll tell you what assignments are due on which days. Basically, what I'm doing is this. In the weeks where I do a live stream, your assignment is due the opposite week. All right. I just took attendance, Gabriel. As soon as you say hello to me, boom, I just check it off. Gabriel's here, Oscar's here, Bradley's here, Radio's here, Oscar, dual. That's how I do it. All right. But I'll become more sophisticated with that. And what I'll have to do is I'll start having to play some tricks. In other words, I'll have to insert in the middle of a lecture, okay, I need everyone to sign in, because some of you think, I'm an old man, that you're going to come in and then drop out and disappear and then act like you were here. No, I'll figure out a way, even if I have to throw some quizzes out there. But for now, just watch the announcement board and read the syllabus. You do those two things, you should be fine. Yes, absolutely, Charlie. I prefer for you, all of you, to submit in Blackboard through the course message system. But if that doesn't work, yes, submit here. Submit here as your backup. Submit it here. And the other thing you need to do, a lot of you said, can you check and check and check and see if I submitted it? Can you check? I can't. Man, I've received like 75 of those, and that'd take me 3 hours just to say, yeah, you submitted it in. So what you do is you're going to take a look at the timestamp of when you put it in. All right. If you emailed it in, there's always going to be a timestamp of when it was sent. So if somehow I don't get it, you say, well, I have a timestamp. I say, all right, just submit it again. Right. But let's not worry about that. Right now, I just wanted to go through common sense, and I wanted to go through the idea of human nature, but I'll go into human nature more in the future. I just want to say thank you all for being here. Keep your heads up. We're going to survive this. We're all going to thrive, and you're going to learn more about corrections than you ever imagined. I'm signing off. You all have a great evening. All righty? Bye.